as Deputy Attorney General James Cole prepares to testify before the House Committee on Oversight today. For more information about the legal fallout from the IRS scandal, we're joined here in studio by Bruce Reinhart, who's a former federal prosecutor. He's also now defense attorney who specializes in white-collar crime and government compliance. Bruce, great to have you with us.
Thank you, John. Good morning.
And of course, you've worked with me closely on other stories, and we've done a couple of situations, unfortunately, where we've seen politicians go to jail, both on the prosecutorial side and the defense side here. But real quickly, as the case builds against Lois Lerner here, should she be reaching out to Martha Stewart for advice on how to survive a federal prison?
It may be a little late for that, but yes. I mean, generally speaking, Ms. Lerner is going to have the same issue that Martha Stewart had, which is it may not be what happened that started the investigation that gets her in trouble. It may be, was there a cover-up or was there an effort to try to obstruct the investigation? And that's always the problem. It's sometimes very hard when you have, as I sometimes do, clients who come in and say, look, I did something wrong, but it's not necessarily criminal. And you say to them, well, go in and just admit that. And they have other agendas. They're political people, they're government officials, and they don't want to admit to doing anything wrong. Or in Ms. Stewart's case, they're a public figure, they don't want to admit to doing something wrong. So someone like Ms. Lerner, the issue is going to be now not the underlying event, but the cover-up.
Okay, so that is so often the issue with these political scandals here. It's not necessarily what took place, as you mentioned, but what follows next.
Correct. You go all the way back even to Watergate. What people forget is what everyone got convicted of in Watergate was not breaking into the hotel. It was covering up the break-in into the hotel. So yes, it's often the aftermath where people make it worse than it really is.
All right, so Bruce, Mr. Cole, who is works underneath Eric Holder at the Justice Department, he's going to testify here today. But we just heard from Congressman Paul Gosar from Arizona, who serves on the Oversight Committee, that there's really nothing at this point that he feels like the DOJ can do to give the American people the confidence that they're really going to get to the bottom of this issue.
Well, I understand that, and I've heard that argument before, and that's why for many years we had an independent counsel statute, because the belief was that a sitting administration can't investigate and prosecute itself aggressively. And like as I say, for many years that was the belief, but I don't think that that's true. I mean, I personally know Mr. Cole. He used to be my boss. I've known him for a long, long time, and I know the people in the unit at the Justice Department who will conduct this investigation. I used to work there. And I can tell you they're not political hacks. They're people who are just going to look at the facts. They're going to take experienced career FBI agents and experienced career prosecutors and look at the facts and the evidence and drive it to whatever outcome comes of it. And then there's congressional oversight. If Congress isn't satisfied with how things turn out, they can have oversight hearings. So I think there's a process here, and what Congress has to do, which isn't what they want to do, but they have to step back and let the Justice Department do its job. And hopefully when that process is over, the American people feel there's been integrity in the investigation.
So you worked with Mr. Cole closely here, and is it somewhat offensive to you to hear Republicans like Paul Gosar say that this investigation, because it's being overseen by Eric Holder, cannot be, we won't see due process?
Yeah, it's offensive not necessarily because I happen to know Mr. Cole and Attorney General Holder personally and like them personally. It's offensive because I served in the Justice Department under Democratic administrations and Republican administrations, and the same argument was made about both. When I served there under the Clinton administration and the first Bush administration, we had the same thing where the career people at the Justice Department were investigating somebody else within the administration, and the accusation was that we were a bunch of political hacks protecting the president. We were the same people. We had Republicans in office, we had Democrats in office, but we were career people working with career FBI agents just doing our jobs. So that's the part that's offensive, that the American people should have more confidence in their government, and I think it speaks ill of our current political situation.
Certainly.
That we don't.
I think you could say there's a crisis of perception right now among the American people, and there is some hope that if the due process plays out in a very transparent way in this process, maybe that will be restored. But the onus, I would say, and I think you might agree, is on the DOJ to get that done. Let's talk a little bit more about some of the specific comments coming out of the committee, the Oversight Committee, and specifically Jim Jordan here of Ohio, speaking out yesterday, and we have a full screen prepared for him. Finally, someone in the administration admits that the destruction of 2 years of emails from Lois Lerner is fishy. Justice Department spokeswoman Emily Pierce said the IRS investigation was, quote, launched by the department without hesitation and immediately after Ms. Lerner publicly acknowledged the potential misconduct. So again, Bruce, you go back to the fundamentals here in the smell test. To you, does this pass the smell test?
Yeah, unfortunately, having been in government a long time, the fact that, well, let me put it this way, incompetence doesn't necessarily lead to criminality. So
and which out of those two scenarios right there seems more likely to you at this point?
Within the IRS, probably incompetence. The IRS has one of the most antiquated computer systems in the world. And the fact that emails could have disappeared without Ms. Lerner knowing about it or Ms. Lerner being involved is entirely credible to me. And that, I'm sure, will be her explanation, is that she was a very high-level person in the department. When the subpoena came in from Congress, it was delegated down to people who did this for a living. They were instructed to find everything. Information came back up to her that said, this is what we have. She reported what she was told, and it turns out not to be true. But that's not a crime. If she didn't know it wasn't true, that's not a crime. And that's going to probably be where her defense lies. And
one of the problems with that might be the fact that there have been some new emails surfacing that Lerner apparently warned some of her colleagues about that. Maybe you've seen those emails. Would that, and we have one on the screen here, I was cautioning folks about emails and how we had several occasions where Congress has asked for emails. Now was this getting back to what you were mentioning at the very onset of this interview, where you have maybe this is a smoking gun that proves there was some sort of conspiracy here?
Possibly. It depends, again, how one reads that email. It could be read one way to say that destroy what we already have, which would, of course, be criminal. Or it could be construed to say, going forward, recognize that Congress may ask for our emails, so be careful what you put in writing, which any good boss in any business, yours, mine, the government, is telling their employees. Never put anything in writing that you don't want to see on the front page of the newspaper or broadcast on Newsmax. So how one reads that email, but yes, I could certainly see a jury or members of Congress reading that as a smoking gun.
Okay, all right, so let's talk a little bit more about the committee hearing we're going to see today play out on Capitol Hill. There's another potential smoking gun here, and this voicemail has already started to circulate. It comes from Hilda Solis, former Labor Department secretary, asking a Labor Department employee to contribute and get others to do the same for the Obama re-election campaign. Let's take a listen to that phone call.
Hi. This is Hilda Solis calling, just calling you off the record here. Wanted to ask you if you could help us get folks organized to come to a fundraiser that we're doing for Organizing for America's for Obama campaign on Friday at La Fonda at 6 p.m. Ruben Smith, an attorney, and his staff are helping us put this together. There's a lot of folks that we know that are coming, but wanted to ask you if you might help contribute or get other folks to help out.
Now, if Solis was doing this on the clock while working for the Labor Department on a taxpayer-funded salary, is she guilty of violating the Hatch Act?
More than likely, she's violated the Hatch Act. I'm not sure if she violated it at the level that there's criminal penalties, but has she violated the Hatch Act? It sounds to me like she has. And the Hatch Act, for those who don't know, is a federal statute that simply says that a government officer can't use the resources and time of the federal government to advance partisan political interests. And certainly from what I just heard on that email, or that voicemail, sounds like she was.
So we're in this process now. There's several, in fact, congressional committees investigating the IRS scandal, including Oversight and Ways and Means. And this type of information is now coming out well into the process here. Does it seem to you, Bruce, almost as if Darrell Issa is maybe grasping at straws here, trying to make something stick?
Yes, but that's not new. That's been going on in Washington, D.C. for as long as we can all remember. It's part of the unfortunate game of politics these days to try to turn something that may be bad governance or incompetence into some sort of an intentional scandal and try to hang the administration based on that. But they're also turning up some evidence that there was incompetence, and that is the role of an oversight committee, not necessarily to find criminality, but to police the proper functioning of the government. So if you've got people who are doing things in violation of the Hatch Act or other problems, that's appropriate.
All right, so we've heard these calls for Lois Lerner to go to jail. Give us your take on a percentage basis on the likelihood of seeing Lois Lerner in a prison jumpsuit.
Low. I think it's low because I think at the end of the day, what originally happened here is probably not a crime. And to the extent there's concerns about the non-production of the emails, I think she has enough insulation between her and those production issues that, barring some other real smoking gun, I don't see it.
Fascinating take. We got about a minute left. One more question for you before we say goodbye here. This a lawsuit that House Republicans are looking to file against the president. Unprecedented, a good step. What do you think?
I think it's not well grounded in the law, I think it gets thrown out by the courts because I don't think Congress has standing to sue the president.
All right, we'll see where that goes. A lot of folks still wondering why Congress isn't doing a better job of using the power of the purse, going to things like lawsuits, and nobody, at least anybody in Washington, wants to talk about the I word, and that being impeachment. But still, the president faces a lot of pressure on the economy, on immigration, on a number of other issues, which we'll cover here today on America's Forum and on Newsmax TV throughout the day. Of course, you can always reach out to us and talk to us about the main issues of the day. We're putting our social media contact information up here on the screen. Reach out to us on Twitter at Newsmax TV. You can email us, newsmaxtv.com and /comment, or reach out to us on Facebook, facebook.com/NewsmaxTV. Miranda Khan will join us here in just a few moments for another update on some of the big stories today. We'll also talk to Waleed Perez shortly here about the latest developments in Israel and Gaza. I'm John Bachman. More ahead here on America's Forum right after this commercial break.